Hello, I'm Lars Sage, Gallery Manager of the Art Center of Estes Park, and I want to welcome Carol Gregory, who's a featured artist of our newest show, Celebrate Nature, which is going to open on September 25th. Welcome, Carol,
Well, thank you. Nice to be here. It's a beautiful day.
and we're outside today.
Yay! Good
so,
place to be.
let's kind of start off with, tell us, how did you get involved with wildlife photography?
Well, when I first got started with photography, I was shooting everything. I was just so excited about it. But then I kind of narrowed it down to flowers. Somehow the beauty of flowers really captured my attention. But once I got to the flowers, I started really enjoying the insects and the birds and liking the challenge of the fact that they were moving and I had to work harder to get the image. And so that kind of lured me into doing wildlife, starting with the insects, the birds, and then moving on to bigger things. And pretty soon I was photographing every bit of wildlife I could get my hands on.
Well, knowing wildlife doesn't necessarily pose for you, what are some of the challenges of photographing wildlife?
Oh my gosh. You've got to be an early riser, that's for sure. Um, the challenge of getting to them is tough. I remember I had two knee replacements, and a couple months later I was walking down steep ravines trying to get to some wild horses that were on the other side, and I thought, this is nuts. But it's kind of what it takes to get there. I've been sitting in photo blinds for hours in 140-degree temperatures. I've been sitting on ice in Minnesota photographing tundra swans when it was 35 degrees below zero.
Mm.
So those are challenges. Plus, just getting the equipment to the location. If you're doing wildlife, you need bigger lenses. It's a challenge with my size and my age to try to get things where they need to be. So
Uh-huh.
those are some challenges that I face constantly.
Well, knowing that wildlife necessarily aren't like your typical pets, I'm sure like bears and moose and so forth. Have you had any problems with photographing them and them challenging you?
Um, yeah, I've had some close encounters. The one that actually challenged me was the matriarch of a bison herd. It wasn't a male, it wasn't a bull, but I was out photographing the cows with their calves, and they're really cute and fun. And the matriarch of the herd was watching me, and I guess I didn't see her. So she did charge me, and I was by my car on the road, so I wasn't doing anything out of line, but she just had it with me. And so she charged me, and I remember saying something and putting my hand out, and she stopped. Whether that encouraged her to stop or whether it was totally a bluff charge, I have no idea. But I started thinking, is this the way things are going to end? So that was a close one. I had another with two stallions that were chasing each other around. And I was the only one there. It was out in the plains. There was nothing around. And they went way off. And I thought, okay, that's the end of that. Let's go find some other horses. And all of a sudden, they started coming right at me. Both of them, pell-mell, directly at me. There was no rock or tree to hide behind. There wasn't even, there was a little hill, so I stood up to look bigger. And they turned away from me within 10 feet of me.
Wow.
And I was still photographing, got the kicks at the end, and I thought, that was a close call.
With the amazing
Oh
pictures
my
of that.
gosh. And I did have one other kind of recently I had gone to Antarctica to photograph penguins, and they always say you have to watch out for the fur seals because the males are really ornery. And I had two or three of them charge me while I was there. And again, I just said something real loud. They put out my hand and they stopped. But if they hadn't stopped, when you're that far away from hospital care, it would have been bad.
Yeah.
That was my most recent encounter.
Well, it sounds like you had a lot of interesting experiences trying to photograph. Is there one particular memorable experience you've had photographing?
Oh, there's two or three that stand out. One of them, I went to Baffin Island, which is in the Arctic, and it was like 30 below zero, and I was sleeping in a tent on a cot, and was out all day on these Inuit sleds, and the beauty was spectacular, but it was really challenging conditions, and I was there for a week, and I thought, I'm glad I didn't wait till I was getting older to do that one. That was memorable, though, really memorable. Another one was actually in the Tetons when I was just sitting in the pond photographing a moose that was a nice distance away, and then all of a sudden, the moose started coming from all directions. And I was surrounded by 5 different moose, and they were all getting way too close. But I was there, and I just settled in and pretended I was a tree and enjoyed the moment. And that was memorable. And I think the other one that stands out for me was photographing mountain gorillas, where it was a long trek up steep, slippery slopes. It was raining hard. The stinging nettles were all around you, but when you get there and you see your first gorilla and they're all there just doing their thing, it was very memorable, very worth it.
Well, it sounds like you've been traveling a lot of different places to do your photography. Is there any particular favorite places you have?
Yeah, I actually love anything in Africa. It's always great for me. Um, and around here, I mean, I love Rocky Mountain National Park. It's fabulous. And I love the Tetons. That's another place I go to frequently. And the other place I like to go, particularly for the wild horses, is Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. It's one place that a lot of people don't get to. And it has a variety of wildlife, but I particularly go there for the wild horses.
Um, it sounds like you've been a photographer for a number of years. Has things changed over the years in doing photography?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that have really caused things to evolve. I think the biggest one is the digital era, because I started out with film.
Mm-hmm.
And the digital era just started about the time I'd sent 2 rolls of really wonderful flamingo images to Fuji to get processed and sent back to me. And they sent me somebody's horrible vacation images. And I sent them right back and said, these are not mine, I want my flamingos. They never got my flamingos from whoever got those. And I thought, I'm going digital. I want total control over what happens to my pictures. And so that was one change. And I think another is the advent of Photoshop, which has been delightful to be able to really work with images. But I know I've got some, like I have one that's a fox in a truck that looks like he's driving. And I'll have people go by and say, oh, they just Photoshopped that in. It's like, no, I shot it that way. So it's a change that is both good and bad in that respect. But I think the whole idea of the cameras and the technology with the digital is perfect for wildlife, because I don't have to count the cost of every picture I take now, and I can shoot faster, harder, which you need with wildlife because of the faster cameras. So those have all been changes that I've encountered in the time I've been shooting.
Well, we've been so affected by this pandemic, and how we even do things in the gallery and so forth, and everybody else has had to adjust. How has it impacted on taking photographs for you?
Oh boy, yeah. At the beginning, when everybody was basically really quarantined, that was the one thing I could still do. I would get up early in the morning, before dawn. I was in a place where I could walk to all these wonderful bird opportunities, because it was actually in South Carolina at the time. And so my start of every day was all about photography, and I did more photography than I've ever done, because that was the only thing I could do outside. So I did a lot of that. On the downside is I had 4 fabulous out-of-the-country trips this year and one early next year that involved like cheetahs and going to the Galapagos and photographing orangutans and all sorts of cool opportunities that all got lost. So instead, what I'm doing is really concentrating on local things, and that's been good too. I mean, I'm revisiting a lot of Colorado locations and going back to the Tetons, and I built in more trips locally than I had scheduled, and it's all been good. So it's a trade-off, but it's kept me busy.
Just shows you that we can adjust and adapt to circumstances and still make it work for us as well.
Just find ways.
So what are your goals for the future?
Oh, the hardest thing for me in looking at the future is the amount of work it takes to get these images. The terrain you have to cover, the long days, the extreme climate changes, and the heavy equipment. And with wildlife, you've got to have the bigger lenses I'd like to have a good, solid professional camera that will do the job. It's a lot of weight to carry. It's a lot of terrain to cover, and I'm definitely a senior citizen now. So I just have to keep finding ways to get to what I want to photograph, get the equipment with me somehow. And I've gone to my first wheeled camera case, but you can't take that on a trail. So I'm just looking for ways. I have a little stool I sit on now because I have those knee replacements, so I can't get down on my knees anymore. But my little stool works. So I'm just looking for ways to adapt and do this for as long as I can because I so love it.
How long have you been doing this?
Oh God, I think I started in 1969 when I got my first SLR camera, and I've been shooting hard ever since.
Wow.
But I actually had a Brownie bullet when I was 10 and did a lot of shots, but my serious photography started in '69.
Wow.
Just the other day.
Just the other day. That's right. That's right. Well, I have to say, looking at the images you capture, especially the wildlife, I just have to admire the patience and persistence you have most likely have to go through to capture those things.
It is a challenge, and for that reason, sometimes I like the joy of a nice landscape shot where I can just sit there and ponder it, think about the best approach, wait for the best light, just hang out and then shoot my picture, and it's not going away. And that makes life a little easier. So I do a bit of landscape work as well, and some specialty item like the leaves here,
Yeah.
a little bit of close-up work. I love it all. So
Well, it's
fun to
obvious
share.
in your work, that's for sure. So, well, thank you, Carol. We appreciate your taking a little time to get us a little better acquainted with you and your work. And the Art Center is opening this show on September 25th. We are open Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Mondays from 12 to 4. And the public is certainly invited to come and look at this beautiful artwork, along with the other artists that we do have showing in the gallery uh, over this next show. And we are thankful for Carol and her work, and we are happy to feature her this time around. And the show itself will run until November 2nd. So the public is invited to come enjoy, and if you can, at least enjoy this virtual tour that will be coming out here shortly. Thank you again, Carol.
Hey, thank you, Lars. All right.